Welcome back to another Medtech Snapshot. I'm excited today because we're getting into embedded software. So with me is Jeff Gable. Jeff is the founder of Gable Technologies, and he happens to be a medical device embedded systems and embedded software SME. I've known Jeff for many number of years. So Jeff, glad to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Travis. It's good to be here.
So look, we're going to talk about Agile today and integrating Agile into product development. So can you share with me, when we think of NPD activities, how do you incorporate Agile development with FDA design controls, but really specifically looking at the design input phase?
Sure. So Agile is one of those buzzwords that's been overused a lot, and it's kind of a Rorschach test at this point where, it says more about the person who hears it than about the concept itself. But the overall philosophy is that you want to get feedback as quickly as possible and incorporate feedback into your next iteration. And you can do that on a very granular time scale or on larger time scales where get to market, get feedback, et cetera. So my philosophy on this is particularly the design input phase. There's 4 things I think people need to get right during that design input phase to help them be responsive to learnings that they have, achieve those learnings and incorporate them as quickly as possible. First is that you want to iteratively prototype extensively before starting that formal design process. What people do is they start that formal design process a little too early, and they then it's harder to change the ship when you're concurrently doing all of this heavyweight, maybe onerous documentation. So you really want to know what exactly you want to build. You will have learnings later, but that's okay. You want to know what you're going to build before you start that design controlled process. Second, you want to really be ruthless about prioritizing those requirements and determining the true minimum that you need to put into your product so that you can ship to market as a version 1. And again, this is a pitfall that a lot of people fall into. They want to put every single feature into their product, and they don't have market validation yet. So you need to really winnow those down. Third, once you have those winnowed down requirements, you really need to flesh them out rigorously and in detail. And this is where there's a tight feedback loop between requirements and system design and architecture. And you need to recognize the difference between requirements that are TBD, to be determined, because you don't yet have enough information, and requirements that you've just put TBD there because you're being lazy and procrastinating. And I've seen that happen a lot too. People say, we'll figure it out later. There's no reason not to figure that out now. You have all the information now, and going through that process of actually fleshing that out and making sure you have a design and architecture that can feasibly support it. It's much faster to learn that now than down the road when you've actually built boards and written software and built mechanical designs. It's much faster to change that early. So that's the third point. The last one is recognizing that even with those fleshed out, minimized version 1 requirements, you will inevitably learn new information and change requirements during that development process. And your lifecycle management tool, this is the tool where you track your requirements and trace them to each other and trace to test cases. That must be as streamlined as possible to support those evolving requirements and test cases. And when people track those in Word and Excel, and it's a very onerous process, they literally say, I don't want to change it because it's too much paperwork. And my soul dies a little bit whenever I hear that. So those are the 4 things that I think people need to keep in mind as they're trying to be lean and agile heading into that and going through that design input phase.